The United States Navy just confirmed that an F-35C stealth fighter, the most expensive weapons system in human history, has engaged and destroyed an Iranian aircraft over the Arabian Sea. The Pentagon is calling it a simple act of self-defense. They say the drone aggressively approached the USS Abraham Lincoln and refused to turn back. They want you to believe this was just a rogue incident, a singular moment of friction in a volatile region. But if you believe that, you aren't paying attention. This wasn't just a shootdown. It was a message sent at Mach 1. Because if you look at the calendar, this missile wasn't fired in a vacuum. It was fired exactly 48 hours before the most critical diplomatic talks of the Trump presidency are set to begin in Istanbul. We are standing on the precipice of something massive. On one side, you have an American armada, Trump's words, not mine, steaming toward the Persian Gulf. On the other, you have Tehran threatening to rain missiles, not just on American ships, but on the heart of Tel Aviv. And in the middle of it all, a $100 million jet just blew a piece of fiberglass out of the sky to prove a point. What we are witnessing isn't just a military skirmish. It is a high-stakes game of geopolitical poker where the buy-in is a regional war, and everyone is bluffing with live ammunition. Before we decode what is really happening behind the closed doors in Washington and Tehran, you know the drill. If you want the analysis the mainstream networks are too polite to give you, the kind that connects the dots between the battlefield and the negotiating table, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. All right, let's break this down. Let's start with the hardware because the specific choices made here tell us everything we need to know about the strategy. The incident took place about 500 miles off the southern coast of Iran. The USS Abraham Lincoln, a Nimitz-class supercarrier, was transiting international waters when it picked up a bogey. It was a Shahed 139. Now, for those of you who aren't military tech nerds, the Shahed 139 is a medium-altitude, long-endurance drone. It's effectively a knockoff of the American MQ-1 Predator. It's slow, it's loud, and on a radar screen, it lights up like a Christmas tree. It is not a threat to a carrier strike group. The Abraham Lincoln is surrounded by Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system. They could have swatted this thing out of the sky with a standard ship-to-air missile. They could have jammed its signal electronically and dropped it into the ocean without firing a shot. But they didn't do that. Instead, the Navy launched an F-35C Lightning II from the Black Knights Squadron, VMFA 3-14. Do you understand the level of overkill that represents? The F-35C is a fifth-generation stealth fighter, designed to penetrate the most advanced air defense networks on Earth. It is a ghost. Using it to shoot down a Shahed 139 is like using a sledgehammer to kill a mosquito. So why did they do it? Because optics matter. The Pentagon didn't just want to remove a threat, they wanted to demonstrate dominance, they wanted footage. They wanted the Iranians to know that the U.S. isn't just watching, it's hunting. The official statement from Central Command says the drone aggressively approached with unclear intent. That is military speak for, it was getting too close and we were tired of looking at it. But here's the catch. This drone was likely unarmed. Iranian state media claims it was on a surveillance mission. And honestly, that's probably true. Iran uses these drones to probe U.S. defenses, to see how long it takes us to react, and to gather frequency data on our radar systems. By shooting it down with our most advanced jet, we didn't just stop the surveillance. We gave them a data point. We showed them exactly how the F-35 integrates with the carrier's defense grid. And while the pilots were high-fiving, the Iranians were likely recording every second of that engagement, analyzing the electronic signature of the F-35's radar lock. It's a tactical win, sure. But strategically, it's exactly the kind of bait-and-switch Iran excels at. Now let's zoom out. Why is this happening today? Because on Friday, the real war begins, and this one will be fought in a conference room in Istanbul. Reports have confirmed that Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, is preparing to sit down with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. This is huge. These are the first direct high-level talks between the new administration and the Islamic Republic. And the agenda is terrifyingly simple. Stop the war before it starts. But look at the setup. Usually when countries prepare for peace talks, they cool things down, they stop the exercises, they quiet the rhetoric. They create an atmosphere of goodwill. The Trump administration is doing the exact opposite. They are using what Nixon called the madman theory. They want Tehran to believe that Trump is so volatile, so unpredictable, and so ready to pull the trigger that they have no choice but to sign a deal immediately. That's why you have the Abraham Lincoln parked off their coast. That's why you have F-35s blowing up drones 48 hours before the meeting. That's why Trump is on Truth Social thundering about an armada and warning that bad things will happen if a deal isn't reached. He is holding a gun to their head and asking if they want to talk. And it's not just the U.S. The pressure is coming from everywhere. The search results tell us that Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt are frantically trying to mediate because they know if this goes south, they are in the blast radius. Steve Witkoff isn't going to Istanbul to negotiate a treaty. He's going there to deliver an ultimatum. The U.S. demands are maximalist. Hand over the 60% enriched uranium stockpile. Stop supporting the militias in Yemen, Lebanon, and Iraq. Accept a new, stricter nuclear deal with no sunset clauses. In a normal world, Iran would laugh at these demands. They would walk out. But this isn't a normal world. The Iranian economy is cratering. Their internal security forces are exhausted from crushing protests. And they remember June 2025. We have to talk about June 2025. The reports reference Israeli and U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites that happened last summer. That is the ghost haunting these negotiations. Iran knows the U.S. isn't bluffing about bombing them because we already did it. The regime in Tehran is cornered, and a cornered animal doesn't always surrender. Sometimes it lunges. And that brings us to the most dangerous part of this story. While the U.S. is playing 4D chess with aircraft carriers, Iran just flipped the board. Admiral Ali Shamkhani is a name you need to know. He is the senior advisor to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. When he speaks, it's not bluster, it's doctrine. And what he said this week should send a chill down your spine. In an interview with Al Mayadeen, Shamkhani warned that if the U.S. launches any attack on Iranian soil, Tehran will not limit its retaliation to American targets. He said they will strike the heart of Tel Aviv. Let that sink in. He explicitly stated that Iran views the United States and Israel as one military entity. This is a massive strategic shift. In the past, Iran tried to separate the U.S. from Israel. They would hit American bases in Iraq, or they would have Hezbollah hit Israel, but they treated them as separate theaters. Now they are binding them together. Shamkhani is saying, Mr. Trump, you want to bomb our nuclear facilities? Fine. But the price you pay won't be American blood. It will be Israeli cities. He is taking a hostage. He knows that politically Trump cannot afford to be the president who caused the destruction of Tel Aviv. He knows that the U.S.-Israel alliance is the third rail of American politics. By linking the two, he is trying to neutralize the U.S. military advantage. It's a terrifyingly smart move. If an F-35 bombs Natanz and Iran responds by firing 1,000 ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv, suddenly the U.S. isn't just fighting a war of choice. We are fighting a war of survival for our closest ally. And Shamkhani didn't stop there. He also mocked the idea of a limited strike. He said any action, at any level, will be considered the start of a total war. He is removing the off-ramp. He is telling the Pentagon planners, don't think you can do a surgical strike. Don't think you can just hit a few radar sites and call it a day. If you touch us, we burn the whole region down. This is deterrence by insanity. He is promising mutual destruction to prevent a U.S. attack. So, with the threat of total war on the table, what is Iran actually offering? This is where the art of the deal meets the art of the bazaar. Amidst all the threats, Iranian officials have quietly hinted at a concession. They suggested they might be willing to dial down their uranium enrichment from 60% to 20%. Now, if you watch the evening news, they are going to frame this as a breakthrough. They will say, look, pressure works. Iran is blinking. Don't be an idiot. This isn't a concession. It's a shell game. Let's look at the physics. Uranium enriched to 60% is technically civilian, but it is a hair's breadth away from weapons grade. The technical leap from 60% to 90% takes days, not months. By offering to go back to 20%, Iran is offering to freeze the clock but not turn it back. They keep their centrifuges. They keep their scientists, they keep the knowledge, and most importantly, they keep the stockpile they already have. The US is demanding they remove the 60% material from the country. Iran is simply saying, we won't make any more of it for a while. It's a stalling tactic. They want to trade a temporary pause in enrichment for a permanent lifting of sanctions. They want to get the oil flowing again, rebuild their economy, and stabilize the regime, all while keeping the nuclear option in their back pocket. And remember the timing. They are making this offer after the June 2025 strikes destroyed some of their infrastructure. Some analysts are saying Iran is offering this because they can't enrich right now anyway. If their best centrifuges were bombed last summer, offering to pause enrichment is like me offering to stop dunking basketballs. I couldn't do it anyway. It costs them nothing, but it buys them time. And time is the one thing the US cannot afford to give them. If Witkoff accepts this 20% deal in Istanbul, he is buying a fake peace. He is kicking the can down the road to a time when Iran has rebuilt its defenses and is ready to sprint for the bomb again. We also need to talk about the other players in this mess because Iran isn't acting alone. While the Abraham Lincoln is dealing with drones, the rest of the Persian Gulf is on a knife edge. Just hours after the drone shootdown, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, decided to double down. Two of their fast attack boats and another drone harassed a U.S.-flagged merchant vessel, the MV Stana Imperative, in the Strait of Hormuz. They threatened to board and seize the ship. Think about the arrogance of that. The U.S. Navy just shot down their drone, and their response is to immediately try to hijack an American oil tanker? This proves that the deterrence didn't work. The shoot-down didn't scare them. It provoked them. The USS McFall had to rush in to save the tanker, backed up by Air Force F-16s. We were inches away from a naval battle in the world's most important oil choke point. This is the strategy of asymmetric warfare. Iran knows it can't beat the U.S. Navy in a straight fight. Their Navy is a joke compared to a carrier strike group. But they don't need to win. They just need to make the water so dangerous that insurance rates skyrocket and the global economy panics. If they can shut down the Strait of Hormuz, they hold the global energy market hostage. And look at the broader map. Saudi Arabia, Oman, and the UAE are terrified. They are the ones pushing for these Istanbul talks because they know that if missiles start flying, their oil refineries are target number one. They are telling Washington, please cut a deal. We don't care if it's a bad deal. Just don't start a war in our backyard. And then there's the internal situation in Iran. We can't ignore the protests. The reports mention a bloody crackdown on nationwide protests and deadly suppression. The regime is weak at home. Dictatorships are most dangerous when they are vulnerable. Khamenei and his circle might view a war with the U.S. not as a catastrophe, but as a lifeline. Nothing unites a country like a foreign enemy. If they can frame this as defense of the nation against the great Satan, maybe they can stop the students from burning hijabs in the streets. War might be their exit strategy from domestic collapse. Finally, let's look at the American side of this equation. Why is Trump pushing this so hard right now? The transcript I analyzed earlier hinted at a president who is bored of governance, looking for big wins and quick exits. The search results support this image of a transactional, high-pressure approach. Trump doesn't want another forever war. He campaigned on ending them, but he also can't look weak. The Armada rhetoric is classic Trump showmanship. He wants the visual of the aircraft carrier. He wants the headline of the F-35 shootdown. He wants to look like the toughest guy in the room. But his actual goal is likely a deal, any deal, that allows him to declare victory and bring the troops home. He wants to be able to go on TV on Saturday morning and say, I sent the carriers, I scared the Ayatollah, and now we have the greatest deal in history. The danger is that Iran knows this. They know Trump craves the photo op. They know he wants to be the peacemaker. So they might give him the photo op. They might sign a piece of paper in Istanbul that promises peace and stability. They might even shake Steve Witkoff's hand. But unless that piece of paper includes a verifiable intrusive inspection regime that dismantles their nuclear infrastructure brick by brick, it is worthless. Trump risks falling into the same trap as every president before him, trading long-term security for a short-term political win. The F-35 shootdown feels like strength, but if it leads to a weak deal in Istanbul, History will remember it as the moment we blinked. So, where does this leave us? We are in a situation where the margin for error is zero. A pilot in an F-35 makes a split-second decision. A boat captain in the Strait of Hormuz misinterprets a radio signal. A radar operator in Tel Aviv sees a glitch. Any one of these things can spark the fire. The U.S. administration is acting like they have this under control. They are acting like the combination of military pressure and diplomatic openings is a precision instrument. But war is not a precision instrument. It is a blunt force object. We are firing missiles in the same waters where commercial tankers are sailing. We are issuing ultimatums to a regime that believes it is on a divine mission. We are trusting the safety of the world to a diplomatic process led by a real estate developer's envoy and a regime hardliner. The shoot-down of the Shahed 139 was clean. It was professional. It was technically perfect. But the geopolitical mess it triggered is anything but. The official story is that we defended a ship. The reality is that we just kicked a hornet's nest, and now we are walking into a meeting room hoping we don't get stung. The next 72 hours will determine the future of the Middle East. Will Witkoff get his deal? Will Iran freeze its program? Or will Shamkhani make good on his threat to turn Tel Aviv into a battlefield? We are watching a high-speed car crash in slow motion. The F-35 was just the first piece of debris flying off the bumper. And the scary part, we are all passengers in the back seat. This is the story the establishment media is glossing over. They want to talk about the heroism of the pilot or the hope of the talks. They don't want to talk about the risks. They don't want to talk about the one-entity doctrine. They don't want to talk about the nuclear shell game. But we do. We're going to be tracking every movement of the Abraham Lincoln. We're going to be watching the Istanbul summit like a hawk. And when, not if, the narrative shifts again, we will be right here to break it down.